The sound of a match striking, a long inhale, and the slow, deliberate exhale of smoke. The clinking of ice in a glass. A low, throaty chuckle that sounds like dry leaves rustling. You see, we have this marvelous capacity to complicate things. We are the species that ties itself in knots and then complains that the rope is too tight. And nowhere is this more evident, more delightfully and tragically absurd than in our obsession with being good. We have inherited this rather heavy, rather grim furniture of the mind called the 7 deadly sins, and usually, when the preacher or the psychiatrist, who is the modern preacher, talks about these things, they are treated as defects. They are treated as spots on the apple that need to be cut out. But if you cut out all the spots, you find you have no apple left. You see? The word sin itself is a fascinating thing. In the original Greek of the New Testament, the word is hamasha. It's an archery term. It doesn't mean evil. It doesn't mean guilt. It simply means to miss the mark. You aim for the bullseye and you hit the outer ring. You tried to solve the problem of existence. You tried to find out who you are and you just missed the point. So, let us look at these 7 peculiar ways of missing the point, not as crimes to be punished, but as confused attempts to be happy. Because every sinner is, in his own fumbling way, a saint trying to happen. He's just got the wiring crossed. He's trying to be God, which is a perfectly natural ambition, considering that is what he really is underneath it all, but he's going about it the hard way. He is trying to steal the universe instead of realizing he already owns it. Let's start with the big one, the grandfather of them all, pride, or as the Latins call it, superbia. Now, usually, we think of pride as the fellow who struts around like a peacock, the man who thinks he's the cat's pajamas. But that is just the surface. That is the cheap pride. Real pride, the deadly kind, is far more subtle and far more terrifying. Pride is the sensation of being a separate, skin-encapsulated ego that is in control of its own destiny. It is the hallucination that I, this little bag of water and chemistry, am the prime mover. It is the refusal to join the dance. You see, the universe is a flowing, wiggling, dancing process. It is one energy, playing hide and seek with itself. But the proud man, he stiffens. He stands in the middle of the stream and tries to push the river back. He says, I have made myself. This is the ultimate cosmic joke, because the I he thinks he has made is actually a social fiction, a convention, a ghost. The proud man is disenchanted of dependence. He cannot admit that he needs the sun, the soil, the bacteria in his gut, the love of others. To admit that would be to dissolve. And the ego's greatest fear is dissolution, so he built a tower. He builds a fortress of opinions, of status, of achievements. Look at what I have done, he says. But deep down, in the dark of the night, he knows it's a lie. He knows he is as fragile as a bubble in a boiling pot. And this creates a huge tension, a rigidity. The proud man cannot bend, and because he cannot bend, he will inevitably break. He misses the mark because he thinks he is the archer, the bow, and the arrow, separate from the target. He doesn't see that the archer and the mark are one event. And when this fortress of pride begins to feel a little lonely because it is very lonely to be God all by yourself, we move to the next frantic attempt to fill the void. Envy. Invidia. To look upon with malice. But it's deeper than that. Envy is the feeling that reality is happening over there, where you are not. It is the result of the linear view of time and the competitive view of life. If you believe that life is a race, and that there is a prize at the end, and that there is not enough of the prize to go around, you will naturally hate anyone who seems to be running faster than you. But look at what envy really is. It is a total loss of the present moment. The envious man is never here. He is always living in a fantasy of someone else's life. He looks at his neighbor's car, his neighbor's wife, his neighbor's peace of mind, and he says, if I had that, I would be real. If I had that, I would be content. He is trying to ingest the other person to fill his own emptiness. But it is a hunger that can never be satisfied because he is trying to eat the menu instead of the dinner. He thinks the symbol of success is the success itself. The paradox of envy is that it is a form of love that has gone sour. You appreciate the beauty in another, but instead of enjoying it as a manifestation of the Tao of the nature of things, you want to possess it. You want to lock it in a box and say, mine. And because you cannot be someone else, you decide to destroy them. If I cannot have the light, I will blow out your candle so we can both sit in the dark. It is the crab bucket mentality. It is the refusal to see that your neighbor's joy is actually your joy because there is no real boundary between you and your neighbor. You are both leaves on the same tree. If the leaves on the upper branch get more sun, it feeds the roots that feed you. But the envious man thinks he is a separate plant in a separate pot, starving while the other feasts. So, the ego, finding no satisfaction in its tower of pride and eating its own heart out with envy, begins to get angry. It realizes that the universe is not obeying its commands, and this gives rise to the red flash, the sudden storm. Era. Now, anger in itself is not a sin. If you step on a cat's tail, it screams and scratches. That is honesty. That is nature. The sudden burst of thunder that clears the air, that is fine. That is just the wiggle of the world. But wrath is something else. Wrath is anger that has been kept in the cellar until it ferments. It is anger that has solidified into a posture. Wrath is the desire to eliminate the obstacle. And what is the obstacle? Ultimately, it is anything that disrupts the ego's illusion of control. The man in the grip of wrath wants to wipe out the other. He wants to smash the mirror because he doesn't like the reflection. You see, we get angry at the world because we think the world should fit our idea of it. We have a geometry in our heads. Everything should be straight lines and perfect circles, and when the world turns out to be squiggly and chaotic and muddy, we get furious. How dare you? We scream at the universe. How dare you be different from what I expected? It is a tantrum. It is the infant screaming because the breast has been taken away, but the adult wraps this tantrum in righteousness. That is the danger. Wrath always masquerades as justice. We never just say, I am hurt and I want to hit you. No, we say, you are evil, and it is my moral duty to punish you. We bomb cities to bring them peace. We burn heretics to save their souls. We scream at our children to teach them respect. It is the logic of the madman. Wrath misses the mark because it assumes that force is the ultimate power. It assumes that you can beat the universe into submission. But you can't. You can't smooth rough water with a flat iron. You only disturb it more. To quiet the water, you must leave it alone, but the wrathful man cannot leave it alone. He must strike it. And so the turbulence grows, and his anger grows with it, in a vicious, spiraling feedback loop. And when the fighting is done, and the ego is exhausted, bruised, and still empty, it collapses into a heavy, dull lethargy. It tries to numb the pain of its own futility. Sloth. Acedia. This is often translated as laziness, but that is a terrible translation. Laziness can be a virtue. A man who sits under a tree and does nothing because he is content with the passing clouds, he is a sage. He is a Buddha. No, sloth is not sitting still. Sloth is a spiritual sorrow. It is a refusal of the joy of the world. It is the feeling that nothing is worth doing because nothing has any meaning. It is the what's the use attitude. It is the specific depression of the person who has seen through the game but hasn't yet seen the reality behind the game. He sees that the rat race is pointless, but he doesn't see that the pointlessness is the point. He doesn't see that life is music and you are supposed to dance. He thinks life is a journey and he is tired of walking and he just sits down in the mud and refuses to move. Sloth is the paralysis of the will. It is the skin-encapsulated ego curling in on itself, pulling the blinds, and deciding to rot. It is the ultimate rejection of the gift of consciousness. It is saying to the universe, your show is boring. I'm going to sleep. And you know, in a way, this is the most dangerous of them all. Because with pride, or envy, or wrath, there is at least energy, there is fire, there is movement, but with sloth, the fire goes out. The ice sets in. And once you are frozen, it is very hard to melt. But the human organism, even when the spirit is asleep, still has biological drives. It still craves, and if it cannot find satisfaction in the spirit, it will try to stuff the hole with matter. It will try to fill the infinite void with finite things. And here we tumble into the sticky, grasping hands of. Now, watch this carefully. Greed. You see, the peculiar thing about greed is that it is a form of breath holding. It is the attempt to inhale without ever exhaling, and if you try that with your lungs, you will turn blue and pass out. But we try it with our possessions, with our money, with our security, and we wonder why we feel so strangled. Greed is based on a fundamental confusion between symbol and reality. We confuse the menu with the dinner. Money, for instance, is a symbol. It is a measure of wealth, just as inches are a measure of length. But you don't go around accumulating inches. You don't hoard buckets of inches in your basement and say, look, I have more length than you. That would be absurd. But we do this with money. We hoard the potential for experience rather than the experience itself. The greedy man is the man who has barricaded himself in with cans of food but has forgotten how to use a can opener. He is trying to secure the future. He says, if I just get enough stuff, I will be safe. Death cannot touch me if I have a big enough bank account. It is the armoring of the ego. It is the attempt to make the fluid, wobbly world of nature into something solid and predictable. But water, you see, slips through your fingers the tighter you clutch it. To hold water, you must cup your hands. You must be gentle. You must hold it as if you are not holding it. Greed is the violence of the closed fist. It misses the mark because it assumes that there is a me inside the skin that can possess the world outside the skin. But you are the world. You can't possess it any more than your left hand can possess your right hand. It's all the same body. The more you grasp, the more you isolate yourself, until you are nothing but a dragon sleeping on a pile of gold, starving to death in a cave of your own making. And when clutching the world doesn't work, when the pile of gold fails to bring peace, the ego shifts its strategy. If I cannot possess it all, perhaps I can consume it all. Perhaps if I stuff enough of the world inside me, the gnawing emptiness will go away. Gluttony. Now, don't make the mistake of thinking this is just about a fellow who eats too much spaghetti. That is a triviality. That is just a matter of digestion. True gluttony is a psychological condition. It is the frantic attempt to taste everything because you are tasting nothing. It is the hungry ghost of Buddhist cosmology, the preta. These represent beings with giant, cavernous bellies and tiny, pinhole throats. They have immense desire but no capacity to receive. Look at how we live today. We are gluttons for information, gluttons for noise, gluttons for stimulation. We scroll, we click, we buy, we swallow. But do we digest? Do we save? The glutton eats the orange, but while he is chewing the first part, he is already thinking about the second part. He is never with the taste of the orange. He is always ahead of himself. He is chasing the memory of the previous bite and the anticipation of the next one, but he misses the now. And because he misses the now, he is perpetually hungry. He tries to fill a spiritual hole with material corks, but the hole is the void of the infinite universe itself, and you cannot fill the infinite with hamburgers or fast cars or headlines. You can throw the whole world into that abyss, and it will never be full. Gluttony is the refusal to just be. It is the panic that arises when there is silence. Quick, says the ego, turn on the radio. Eat a snack. Call a friend. Do something. Don't let the silence in. Because in the silence, you might find out that you aren't who you think you are. You might find out that the separate self is a fiction. And rather than face that liberation, we choose to choke ourselves on the clutter of the world. And then, naturally, we come to the most fascinating, the most taboo, and perhaps the most misunderstood of them all, lust. A soft chuckle, warm and knowing. Oh, how we have tortured ourselves with this one. We have created a civilization that is simultaneously obsessed with sex and disenchanted with it. We plaster it on every billboard and then whisper about it in the confessional. But what is lust, really? It is not sexual desire. Sexual desire is the universe playing. It is the flowers blooming, the bees buzzing, the galaxies colliding. It is the Tao flowing through the organism. There is no sin in the biological urge to merge. None of. Lust becomes a deadly sin when it is divorced from the person, when it becomes an itch that needs scratching. Lust is the reduction of another human being to a device for your own gratification. It is using a person like you use a Kleenex. But go deeper. Why is the compulsion so strong? Why do we chase this sensation with such desperation? Because the orgasm is one of the few moments in the life of a civilized, repressed Westerner where the ego stops. For a second split, the chatter in the skull ceases. The past and the future vanish. There is no I and no you, there is just the happening. The French call it la petite mort, the little death. We lust after that little death. We are tired of being individuals. We are tired of carrying the burden of a separate identity. We want to be dissolved. We want to return to the ocean. But the lustful man tries to steal this transcendence. He wants the release without the relationship. He wants the ecstasy without the surrender. He treats the other person as a vending machine for God consciousness, and because he treats it like a commodity, he gets the physical spasm, but he misses the union. He wakes up afterwards feeling more alone than before. Post-coitum omni animal trist est after coitus. Every animal is sad. Why? Because he tried to grab the infinite, and he ended up holding only flesh, the sound of a pipe being tapped against an ashtray. So, look at the picture we have painted here. Pride, I am the center of the universe. Envy, I hate that you have what I want. Wrath, I will destroy anything that contradicts me. Sloth, I refuse to participate. Greed, I will hoard the world to feel safe. Gluttony, I will consume the world to feel full. Lust, I will use you to escape myself. Do you see the pattern? Do you see the thread that stitches these dark jewels together? It is fear. It is the frantic, hysterical fear of a little ripple in the ocean that thinks it is separate from the ocean and is discouraged of drying up. Every sin is a survival strategy for a self that doesn't really exist. We build these defenses, these elaborate personality, because we think we are strangers in a strange land. We think we have been thrown into this world, as Heidegger said, Schuoffen, and that we are on probation. We feel we must justify our existence. We must prove we matter. We must grab, fight, and eat our way to significance. But this is all based on a false premise. You were not thrown into this world. You came out of it. You are as much a symptom of nature as the leaves on the trees or the waves on the shore. The 7 deadly sins are simply the result of fighting your own nature. It is the result of trying to swim upstream. And the tragedy is that the harder you swim, the more exhausted you get, and the more you feel you are drowning. A long, thoughtful pause. The ambient sound of a ticking clock becomes audible, then fades. Now, having looked into the abyss, having seen the machinery of our own misery, what do we do? Do we repent? Do we whip ourselves? Do we promise to be good? No. That never works. You cannot force yourself to be ungreedy. If you try to be ungreedy, you are simply being greedy about your own spiritual progress. You are trying to acquire the virtue of non-attachment. It's the same trap, just decorated differently. A man who is proud of his humility is the proudest man of all. So, if we cannot force our way out of the trap, how do we escape? We don't escape. We wake up. We have to understand the nature of the trap itself. We have to see that the prison door has never been locked. The chains we wear, the chains of pride, of envy, of greed, are made of smoke. They are made of thought. Let's take a walk through the looking glass. Let's see what happens when we stop fighting these demons and instead invite them in for tea. Let's see what lies on the other side of the shadow. Because, you see, you can't have light without shadow, you can't have solids without space, and you cannot have a saint without a sinner. They are two sides of the same coin. And the moment you flip the coin, the sound of gentle rain against a window pane, a soft sigh. The moment you flip the coin, you realize something quite startling. You realize that heads and tails are not two different things, they are one coin. You cannot have the mountain without the valley. You cannot have the crest of the wave without the trough. And in the exact same way, you cannot have the virtue without the vice. This is the great stumbling block for the Western mind. We are obsessed with the idea of the pure good. We want light without heat, we want white without black, we want yes without no, but a world like that would be invisible. It would be a blank sheet of paper. For anything to exist, for any drama to happen, there must be contrast. So, when we look at these 7 deadly sins, we are not looking at foreign invaders. We are looking at our own shadow. And as Jung, who was a very wise old bird, pointed out, the shadow is not just the dark trash bin of the psyche. It is also the seat of creativity. It is where the juice is. A person who has absolutely no touch of the rascal in him, who has no capacity for these sins, is not a saint. He is a bore. He is a plastic mannequin. He has no flavor, no spice, no humanity. The salt of the earth has to be a little salty, you see? The problem arises when we try to amputate these parts of ourselves. Let's say you recognize you are full of wrath. You have a terrible temper. So you say, I am going to be a man of peace. I will suppress this anger. I will screw the lid down tight. You grit your teeth and smile a sweet, sickly smile. You become perfectly polite, but underneath, the boiler is building pressure. The steam has nowhere to go, and eventually, you don't just get angry, you get ulcers. You get migraines, or worse, you explode in a way that destroys everything around you. The road to hell, as they say, is paved with good intentions, and the road to the worst kind of evil is often paved with the attempt to be perfectly good. So what if we stop fighting? What if we apply the principles of Judah the gentle way? You don't oppose the force, you roll with it. You use the opponent's energy to throw him. Let's look at greed again. The energy of greed is the desire to take in the world. It is a hunger. Now, you can't stop hunger, but you can look at what you are really hungry for. When you stop judging the greed and simply watch it, you might find that you aren't hungry for money. You are hungry for life. You are hungry for experience. That energy, that drive to acquire, if it is not blocked by fear, becomes the drive to explore. It becomes the passion of the scientist, the artist, the lover of nature. The greedy man who wakes up becomes the man who wants to embrace the stars, not to own them, but to know them. The energy is the same. The direction has shifted from contraction mine to expansion wow. Take lust. We try to beat it down with cold showers and moral lectures, but the energy of lust is the energy of connection. It is eros. It is the glue of the universe. If you stop trying to grab it and instead let it flow through you, it sublimates. It becomes creativity. It becomes poetry. It becomes the profound love for the beauty of form. The man who was once obsessed with bodies becomes the man who sees the divine geometry in a seashell or a cloud formation. He falls in love with the universe. He is still a lover, but his beloved has grown infinite. You see, the sins are just virtues that have lost their way. They are energies that have been trapped in the ego's little game of I. Pride is just the misplaced realization of your own divinity. You feel you are the center of the world? Well, of course you do. Because you are. You are an aperture through which the whole universe is looking at itself. The mistake is thinking that only you are the center. When you realize that every other point is also the center, that the center is everywhere and the circumference is nowhere, then pride transforms into dignity. It transforms into the nobility of being a manifestation of the Godhead. You can stand tall without stepping on anyone else. Sloth, that heavy, leaden feeling. Turn it over. What is on the other side? Peace. Stillness. The capacity to sit and do nothing, which is the hardest thing in the world for a modern man to do. The slothful man is halfway to being a yogi. He just hasn't learned how to breathe yet. He is resisting the frantic busyness of the world. If he stops resisting and starts accepting the stillness, he finds the peace that passeth understanding. He finds the power of the pause. So the task is not to exorcise the demons. The task is to recognize that the demons are just angels wearing scary masks. A match is struck. The faint crackle of burning tobacco. But to do this, here is the rub. To do this, you must give up the one thing you prize most of all. You must give up the illusion of the controller. You think there is a thinker behind your thoughts who can organize them. You think there is a will that can direct your passions. But this is the great hallucination. When you try to control your mind, who is doing the controlling? It's just another part of the mind. It is the thief pretending to be the policeman. It is the dog chasing its own tail. You can chase it for eternity, and you will never catch it. You will only get dizzy. This is why religion based on thou shalt not always fails in the end. It separates you in two. It makes you a house divided. It sets up a wall between the good me and the bad me. And since you are both of them, you can never win. If you win, you lose. So, the alternative? The alternative is the way of the mystic, the way of the Tao. It is to realize that you are not the captain of the ship. You are the ocean. When you feel envy rising, you don't say, I shouldn't feel this. You don't say, I am a bad person. You simply say, envy. Hello. I see you. You acknowledge it. You feel the tightening in the chest, the heat in the face. You watch it as you would watch a thunderstorm moving across a valley. You don't try to stop the rain. You just watch it wet the grass. And a miracle happens. Because you are not fighting it, because you are not feeding it with the energy of resistance, it passes. It changes shape. It reveals its secret. The envy reveals that you are feeling disconnected from your own potential, and having delivered its message, it dissolves. This is the alchemy of awareness. It is the philosopher's stone that turns the lead of sin into the gold of wisdom. But you have to be willing to be a rascal. You have to be willing to admit, yes, I am greedy. Yes, I am vain. Yes, I am frightened. In that admission, there is truth. And the truth, as they say, shall set you free. Not the effort to be true, but the admission of what is. When you stop defending your image, you have nothing left to lose. And when you have nothing to lose, you are fearless. You are free. And this freedom, this brings us to the final realization. The point where the whole serious, heavy, guilt-ridden structure of the 7 deadly sins collapses into something quite different. It collapses into a joke, a divine, cosmic joke, because, you see, God is not a solemn judge with a white beard and a checklist. God is a dancer. God is a player. And all these sins, all these terrible dramas we enact, they are just part of the play. They are the friction that makes the music possible, the sound of wind chimes, distant and light, stirring in a breeze. You see, in the Hindu philosophy, they have a word for the creation of the world, Leela. It means play, it means sport. The universe is the sport of the Supreme Self, playing hide and seek with itself for all eternity. And to play a good game of hide and seek, you have to get lost. You have to really get into it. If you know you are God all the time, it's a bore. It's like playing poker with all the cards face up. There's no risk, no thrill, no drama. So, the one pretends to be the many. The absolute pretends to be the relative. And to make the disguise convincing, it has to adopt these masks. The mask of the miser greed, the mask of the tyrant wrath, the mask of the lover lust. The 7 deadly sins are simply the costumes we wear when we are hiding the most deeply. They are the thickness of the disguise. They are the grit in the oyster that eventually makes the pearl. If you understand this, your relationship to your own wickedness changes completely. You don't hate yourself for it. You don't hate the actor for playing the villain. When the curtain comes down and the play is over, Othello and Iago go out for a drink together. They are friends. The conflict was part of the art. So, your own internal Iago, your own internal shadow, he is necessary. He defines the light. He gives you something to push against so you can feel that you are real. A pause, a slow, deep intake of breath. But there is one final secret to these sins, one final key that unlocks the entire dungeon. If you look closely at pride, envy, wrath, gluttony, lust, sloth, and greed, you will find they all share one fatal flaw. They are all obsessed with time. They are all ways of running away from the present moment. Greed runs toward the future. I need more for later. Gluttony runs toward the next bite. Envy looks at the past. Why didn't I get what he got? Pride builds a monument to yesterday's achievements. Wrath tries to correct the past or control the future. None of them can exist in the now. If you are fully here, completely absorbed in this moment, in the smell of the rain, the feeling of the chair against your back, the sound of my voice, you cannot be sinful. You can only be. In the immediate present, there is no lack. The universe is complete at every microsecond. It is only when you separate your mind, when you detach from the now to worry about the then, that the hunger starts. That the fear starts. That the sin starts. So, the cure for the 7 deadly sins is not 7 different virtues. It is not a complex regimen of moral calisthenics. The cure is presence. It is the act of waking up to the fact that you are already home. You have arrived. You are not a stranger here. You are the works. You are the Big Bang, still exploding, right here in this room. And when you feel that, really feel it in your guts, not just think it in your head, the desperate grasping falls away. Why steal when you own the stars? Why envy when you are the other person? Why hate when there is no one else to fight? The tension relaxes, the clenched fist opens, and the energy that was once knotted up in these deadly sins is released. It flows back into the system as pure vitality, pure joy, pure love. The music shifts to a low, resonant drone, peaceful, oceanic. So, my friends, do not be afraid of your darkness. Do not run from your shadow. Turn around and hug it. Laugh at it. Realize that you are a funny, quaking, messy, delightful mixture of dust and divinity. You are a tube with a mouth at one end and an exit at the other, trying to make sense of an infinite cosmos. It is absurd. It is hilarious. Don't take it so seriously. The devil is only God acting funny. The sins are only the long way home. And you are already there. You have always been there. Stop trying to be good. Stop trying to be bad. Just be. Be the witness. Be the space in which all this happens. A long silence. And as you sit there, let the weight of your sins fall off your shoulders. Let them fall like heavy coats on a warm day. You don't need them anymore. You are light. You are empty. You are free. And if, tomorrow, you find yourself getting angry, or getting greedy, or getting proud, give yourself a wing. Smile. Say, "Ah, there goes the rascal again. What a marvelous performance." And come back to the center. Come back to the breath. Come back to the dance.